When if you actually read the report, it's the exact opposite. It showed that there wasn't some masterminded plan to do anything. It was just people complaining about the incompetence of the situation and that they didn't really know what to do, and that they were very specifically blocking entrances of the Capitol building from protesters entering. From this website called Just the News, where they said there's an FBI bombshell report that 274 plainclothes agents
Oh my God.
were sent to the Capitol on January 6th. Okay.
It's
Now, this
oh my God.
again, a lot of people said, Sitch, what's up with this? Sitch, response to this. Sitch, 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 Sitch. I got like a bunch of different comments
I
asking me to
thought this
respond
was
to
going to
this.
be mainstream media doing fake news. No.
No. Well, we were going to go to the Annika Sprant thing, but feeling a little bit more feisty. So,
Ever
we'll,
like you want to fight with the chat? Okay,
yeah,
here it
yeah,
is.
yeah. So
Bring it on.
we'll kind of go into this. Okay. We'll go into this first and then we'll watch the Anna clip afterward. So, because, God knows if I dare ever, doesn't matter how much I criticize the left, if I ever attack the right, I'm just, being biased in bad faith. So a lot of people didn't even read the actual story that originally reported this. They literally just saw this headline about the plainclothes police officer or plainclothes FBI officers on January 6th. And this plays into this larger narrative, this conspiracy theory that has been pushed around for a long time, that the FBI or some other government agency had infiltrators in the January 6th protests that were government actors, that they got people to break in the Capitol building, they got people to riot. It was really the government behind it trying to get everyone riled up, obviously, so that they could make Donald Trump look bad. That's sort of the argument that was going on. And people thought, because they didn't actually read the article or the source material, saw this headline and they immediately thought this was evidence of this accusation, of this idea, including the president himself, Donald Trump. Donald Trump posted this in response to this. He said, it was just revealed that the FBI had secretly placed against all rules, regulations, protocols, and standards 274 FBI agents in the crowd just prior to and during the January 6th hoax. This is different from what Director Christopher Wray stated over and over again. That's right, as it now turns out, FBI agents were at and in the January 6th protest, probably acting. Maybe he said probably. He didn't say certainly. He said probably. He gave himself some wiggle room. Okay, probably acting as agitators and insurrectionists, but certainly not as law enforcement officials. So certainly not as law enforcement officials. Who knows what they were doing? I want to know who each and every one of these so-called agents are and what they are up to. On that now historic day, many great American patriots were made to pay a very big price only for the love of their country. So if you went to jail for breaking the Capitol building, Adam, you were paying a price for loving your country. All right. If you
If you really loved your country, why would you break into the Capitol building
right, if
and
you beat
steal the podium?
a police officer over the head with a fire extinguisher or smash their head into a door, that was just for your love of your country. So I owe this investigation of quote dirty cops and crooked politicians to them, Christopher Wray, and then the director of FBI has some major explaining to do. That's two in a row, Comey and Wray, who got caught lying with our great country at stake. We can never let this happen to America again. Okay, in all caps. So what was this situation? What was this story? What is anyone even talking about here? So it came out that there was this after action report, which was written after January 6th. And it was essentially a bunch of FBI personnel complaining about how they felt their leadership mishandled the deployment of FBI agents on January 6th. Okay. That is what this situation was. And if you actually look into this report, which here, let me link it in the chat for you guys. Okay, there. Let me kind of went by real quick. Okay, there it is. If you actually read this report, what you'll see is it's 90% of this, which even the article itself acknowledged, 90% of the report was different FBI agents complaining that their bosses were incompetent on how they were managed on January 6th because the the FBI agents that were sent to the Capitol after the rioting started to occur, that the FBI agents didn't have any sort of training or equipment or even leadership in sort of how to actually protect the Capitol building from protesters slash rioters. That they basically just said, hey, we don't have any riot equipment for you. And we know
Oh
that
my
you're not
God.
personally like trained in how to control riots or do anything like this, but we want you. We just think like we need bodies at the Capitol because things are getting out of control. So we just need you to like stand there and look menacing and do all sorts of crazy shit. And if you need to use violence or something, maybe you should shoot someone. Just use your discretion on whether you should use deadly force or not. Okay.
What? That's a little
Right.
crazy.
It is very crazy. And this is what's weird about this situation because there is definitely a controversy here about in terms of the FBI's leadership in mishandling of the situation. And then there's a second controversy here about the BLM stuff, which I'll get into after this, but which are very interesting and definitely elements for the right to pick up on. But instead of picking up on those, they just picked up on the conspiracy theory that somehow these people were engaged in doing some kind of coup thing, which even the article, if you even just read the article itself, okay, the article itself from the Justin News source, they even said that these agents were called in very specifically after the riot formed. They were not part of any sort of infiltration campaign whatsoever to get anyone in doing anything illegal, to get anyone doing riots. That these people in this report that people are holding up as evidence were only sent in after the riots already started.
After the false flag was already in play.
There you go. After the false flags are already in play. So here, let me read some examples of kind of the incompetence that FBI agents were talking about. It said agents who are not assigned to the main office had to scavenge for desk space and computing resources. This proved to be inefficient and limited our response and capability. There was no clear unity or chain of command for the response. Having no clear chain of command made it difficult for consistent decision making or leadership. As in June, agents, when they say June, they mean the BLM riots. As in June, agents were again deployed onto the street, specifically around the Capitol, and simply told to stand behind the police. No other direction. When asked specifically what they were supposed to do or who to check in with, they were told simply the management said to go there and that there was no answer. FBI agents do not have training for nor equipment for riot control. Police look at the agents as liabilities, standing behind them with no equipment and no comms. At one point, police told them to put their gas mask on, which of course they did not have. Management cannot keep sending FBI agents into harm's way simply as a show of force. There's very unclear leadership over the command post. There are multiple ASACs, and occasionally some SACs covering shifts, but who was responsible for overall decision making? What answer you got seemed to vary depending on which shift you were working for. If there was a command structure, it was not apparent, which means a communication issue. Mission type orders. The night of January 6th was understandably chaotic. We instructed to park at the headquarters, but had no direction about where to go or what we were supposed to do. I took my squad down the west lawn of the Capitol, where we linked up with two other squads and stood behind the police as they cleared out protesters, and then quickly realized we'd be useless if the crowd decided to make a concerted push to get back to the Capitol. For these types of situations, I think a simple mission type order coupled with a commander's intent statement is essential. The initial response of having us respond to a riot by standing in line did not seem appropriate because we do not have the gear, equipment, or training for riot control. Our deadly force policy is not equipped, nor do we have the continuum like the police in a riot situation. If someone were to throw a brick at an agent, the agent would be justified in using deadly force under our deadly force policy. Police have other options like rubber bullets, etc. And it just continues. It just
Wow.
goes on.
They didn't
and
even give
on.
him rubber bullets.
They didn't even give him rubber bullets. And so this is what this entire report just goes on and on with basically people, FBI agents and personnel, complaining about the disorganization of leadership in deploying them to protect the Capitol on January 6th. Now, if anyone actually spent the time, there were so many people, not just the president, but there were so many people that repeated this lie that somehow this story had anything to do with promoting the conspiracy that there were FBI agents doing anything in the crowd. When if you actually read the report, it's the exact opposite. It showed that there wasn't some masterminded plan to do anything. It was just people complaining about the incompetence of the situation and that they didn't really know what to do, and that they were very specifically blocking entrances of the Capitol building from protesters entering. And yet, because this story grew so quickly by the fake news apparatus going on the internet and among right-wing circles, even the president weighed in on the situation. But here's
the
where,
president of the United States.
Yes. Now here's an interesting thing too. The lie about this got so bad that even Kash Patel had to weigh in on it. Okay. And even he had to. Now he gave he wanted to push back. It's very interesting. He wanted to push back without appearing to push back. Okay. And so Kash Patel said 274 FBI agents were thrown into crowd control on January 6th against FBI standards. So he says, so even there, right there, he says into crowd control. Okay. Into crowd control. He doesn't say they were part of, the mob or anything like this to get people to riot. That failure was on corrupt leadership. Thanks to agents stepping in, the truth is coming out. So he's saying he's pushing back on the whole narrative while trying to make it seem like he's not pushing back on the whole narrative whatsoever.
Well, how did they want to control the crowd, though?
By having them not enter the Capitol.
By having them enter the Capitol.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
right.
That's what he doesn't say specifically.
Right.
Wink, wink.
Of course. So it really goes you to show, and this is part of when people are talking about the media literacy. I hate to use the word media literacy, but when we talk about classes on actual people understanding the news, would be read the fucking article, number one, which said that they weren't even that they played out the riot, and then number two, read the source material, because the article itself, it was weird. The article itself kept referring to them as plainclothes officers, where the report itself doesn't say that really at any point. And in fact, the only time in the report that plainclothes are even mentioned, ironically, is someone on the FBI complaining that they didn't have plainclothes officers in the crowd. And their whole argument was they were saying the FBI should not be used for crowd control. They should be used for intelligence gathering and for investigative purposes. And saying like, well, if you want to have us in plainclothes in the crowds to gather intel so that we can report back, we should be doing that. We shouldn't be doing crowd control. So the only time plainclothes is even mentioned in this report is someone saying that they didn't actually do the thing that the conspiracy theorists are now running and accusing them of doing.
The FBI embedded 275 plainclothes agents in January 6th crowd, Blaze reports, as House panel probes informants' roles. How did we get to this point? I thought we were told there was a couple of dozen agents. How is it now nearly 300 in total? It's because of the use of language. When they were asked about undercover agents, they said a couple dozen. Plainclothes, well, that's different. They're not undercover. They're there literally as agents, but they're just wearing different clothes. And so here we are, my friends.
So, and then this is also like very dishonest too in the framing. Or Tim didn't actually probably read any of this stuff. Whoever at the Timcast that is assigned to look at the information and then tell Tim did a very shitty job here, because I assume Tim is too busy to do any of this stuff. Because if you actually read the report, the whole thing is you had FBI agents who are standing at entrances telling people don't come in. There's no confusion. No one was like, oh, is that that FBI agent is not wearing a shiny foil outfit that says FBI. Everyone knows who these are. Everyone
Do they have their FBI jackets on?
It doesn't say.
They're cool FBI jackets?
Right. So the idea, because when you say plain clothes, that gives the impression of like, oh, they're hidden.
Undercover, yeah.
They're undercover. That's what everyone thinks. And so, yes, if you have someone who I don't know what they're wearing, because the thing doesn't really.
Well, they could just have they all have badges. I mean, they could just show people their badges.
Right.
Be like, look, I'm FBI right here.
But there was
Move
no
along,
confusion.
son.
the people that were being discussed in this report, there was zero confusion about, whether they were really FBI agents or not. They were all guarding access points or backing up the police. They were not infiltrating anything with their plain clothes disguising.
It is now going viral. This is a Fedsurrection, but I want to add to this.
A Fedsurrection.
I believe there is a strong probability that not only was this instigated and planned by the feds, but that Democrats knew about it. Now, I'm not saying it's definitive, but one thing that I pointed out right after it happened, was that AOC claimed foreknowledge. What? Now, don't get me wrong, she may just be a lying piece of garbage, but AOC claimed in a story on Instagram shortly after January 6th that she heard a bang on her door. "Where is she?" the voice said. She hid in the bathroom, fearing she would die. Well, she was ragged on by conservatives because they said she wasn't even in the Capitol building. To which I have her statement: there are tunnels connecting the Capitol building to the office she was in which case it was entirely possible that the rioters could have made it to her office. The only problem? The story she told was actually an officer evacuating the building, which took place about an hour before the Capitol was even breached, which initially...
This is such great innuendo here, because he's basically saying, yeah, not only did the feds do it, but AOC knew about it in advance. Kind of crazy, isn't it? Where'd you go, Sitch? What happened? Sitch left the show.
Oh, I went to the bathroom. What happened?
You're not even listening to this.
I heard AOC somehow had foreknowledge. I've never heard this claim before.
Yes.
Now covered.
He's saying not only did the feds, not only are they responsible for the January 6th riot, but they gave AOC a heads up ahead of time and said, "Listen,
right,
we're going to start this riot out there. You better get out of here."
So because I remember we covered AOC's like stupid unhinged video about the situation. We were making fun of her.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It was great.
If you forgot, this was the whole her running the Katie Happer's office, asking for shoes in case she had to run away from the mob, and then crying and said that she wanted to grow up to be a mother, even though she was in a building that was like across the street and no one was even at whatsoever.
Yeah.
And she was hiding in the closet. She was hiding in the bathroom. This is what was crazy about the situation.
Of one of her constituents.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a staffer. I don't know if Tim's going to bring this up because I haven't seen this video. The thing that was crazy about this is that so there was some call at some point to evacuate the building, and the Capitol security was, told everyone to go to some evacuation point for everyone that was in the building. And AOC didn't do that, and she acknowledged this, though she kind of acknowledged it in a bunch of different sources. We'll have to go back and find the stream, because I remember Destiny was like trying to claim that this didn't happen and that we just made this up, even though we literally watched the video of her talking about this.
Her colleague, it wasn't a constituent, it was a colleague, one of the other representatives. We watched an interview where she was talking about it. She was telling about AOC hiding in her bathroom.
No, that was Katie Happer.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right. No, but was that the reason AOC? Because I remember we were like, AOC's hiding in her bathroom in her office, and there's banging at the door. And she thinks that they're like January 6th rioters that are going to come in and like kill her or rape her or whatever. And then it turns out to be, it's like the Capitol security, and they're yelling at her because she was supposed to evacuate. And I remember when we first heard the story, my thought was like, well, wait a minute. Why is she the only person that has this story? Why did this not happen to anyone else? And when you listen to what she was saying, she says that, or I don't remember if she says it directly or she's sort of like, you have to kind of connect the dots a little bit. She makes it sound like that they gave the order for all the people in the building to evacuate, and she didn't do it because she was so conspiracy brained that she thought that the Capitol Hill police, because Donald Trump was president, she thought the Capitol Hill police were really Trump's stooges that were going to intentionally lead her to the mob to be attacked or killed.
Yes.
Or violently, assaulted. by the January 6th rioters. So she intentionally ignored them, didn't go to wherever she was supposed to evacuate. And that's why she decided to instead hide in her fucking closet. She's like the kid. Remember, like you'd be like at college and there'd be a fire drill and you're like, I don't want to, or there was like the fire alarm goes off and you just don't want to get out. Like you had like the RC's like banging everyone's door, like making sure everyone actually leaves. This is what happened with AOC. She just didn't want to fucking leave the building. And so this is so that eventually when she finally gets the guys banging her door to get her to leave the fucking bathroom, she doesn't even go, she still doesn't go to the right place. And she somehow ends up wandering around by herself. And that's how she gets to the Katie Happer's office and hides in her office instead of
Katie
going.
Porter.
I'm sorry. Porter,
if you look up Katie Porter and
Katie
AOC,
Porter.
You can see a million articles on this.
Right. Yeah, that's how she ends up at Katie Porter's office. And it's like, that's how she ends up there when she's like completely away from everyone else who just listened to what the security at the building said and just evacuated in a calm, smooth manner to wherever the fuck they were supposed to go that was safe.
AOC to Katie Porter. I thought I was going to die.
Right.
Katie Porter was in her office just working.
Yeah, she like completely didn't have any sort of care in the world. She just standing around.
Okay,
hon,
you just hide there. I got some constituent letters to respond to here. Yes. Poor girl. She's new here. Oh no. AOC went after Katie Porter.
Oh, recently? She can't. That was the person that stood by her on January 6th.
Oh no, it looks like
safe.
When was this? When did this? April 11th, 2020. I don't know. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
All right. Are we moving on? What are we doing?
Yeah. So there was something else that was kind of interesting in this report. That was actually there were two there. Well, there was three. There was the incompetence of the FBI, which definitely people should highlight. There was the fact that I wonder if this was people talking about FBI agents talking about without specifically talking about Ashley Babbitt, because there were several parts in the report where FBI agents were lamenting, as I read, that they didn't have non-lethal equipment whatsoever, and how that was creating a dangerous situation. For example, as I read to you, it says, if someone were to throw a brick at an agent, the agent would be justified in using deadly force under a deadly force policy. Police have other options like rubber bullets. And then there was another comment that was kind of, oh, here we go. It says, this is someone complaining about, oh no, that was something different. Well, I don't know where it is. There's another comment about someone complaining about the inability to not use non-lethal means as an FBI, and how they are basically just told to just use their own discretion when it comes to deadly force, which is obviously very dangerous. And I was wondering if a lot of this was in reaction to the Ashley Babbitt shooting. Now, I don't believe those were FBI agents. I don't believe it was FBI agents that shot her, but it was kind of them alluding to that, talking about how it sounded like it could have been a very similar situation with the person that did shoot Ashley Babbitt, which was because there was such poor communication between the security people, because there was such chaos among leadership. They just kind of threw people in the situation and just said, use your discretion. Maybe that is what led to Ashley Babbitt getting shot.
That sucks.
If it was more actually competent and planned out when what they were doing, that maybe they would have just had police officers just grab her as soon as she got through the thing and just arrest her, and she wouldn't have died. Because there was a lot of, because when we watch the video, it's like a minute after she dies and gets shot, there's like a whole bunch of like riot police officers that show up behind. So obviously there was a very bad communication between, the people that were on one side of the door and people on the other side of the door. That's another thing they complain about, is a lot of times the FBI agents wouldn't communicate, like they're on different radio channels. They don't even have the ability to communicate with, the police and all these other factions.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was just playing that clip in the background, and I don't know if anyone can hear it or not. I don't think they can. And
then the other third thing that was interesting, and this is really where the people on the right should have focused on instead of running the kind of the fake conspiracy about the whole thing, there was two interesting comments from two different FBI personnel that were complaining about the FBI's the response to the BLM protests and the riots, both in terms of how they went after people during the BLM riots, but then also the investigations and the arrests that did not happen after the BLM riots, which are kind of interesting. So some FBI agent said, the actions on January 6, 2021 were absolutely despicable and unacceptable in a civilized society. What is even more unacceptable was the hypocrisy displayed by the FBI and its leadership in their attempt to go after those involved in the Capitol riots, while we as agents watched cities burn across America during the summer of 2020. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
And then another comment says, I've been asked by members of the community why there are two very different responses for my agency, when both riots, meaning January 6th and the BLM riots, appear to be the same to them at face value. It's a shame that I can't answer the question. I have heard U.S. Secret Service police ask why their alleged assaulters during the summer of the 2020 riots were not sought out like those who assaulted officers at the Capitol. Again, I can't answer that question. We were once an apolitical organization, but I no longer see us as such, looking from the ground up. We have been used as pawns in a political war, and FBI leadership fell into the trap and has allowed it to happen. We were supposed to call balls and strikes regardless of political pressure. Now we can't even be trusted to be on the field. I want to be clear so it's not misconstrued. Both the summer riots of 2020 and the Capitol riot were repulsive. The FBI's response to one, not the other, is unacceptable in an organization that's supposed to be independent and apolitical. FBI leadership needs to be reevaluated in the strongest sense possible. We have been infiltrated by political pawns who are sinking the ship many of us work hard to sail every day. Someone in a leadership position at WFO needs to step up and make things right. So that alone should have been the story, that you have FBI agents who are complaining about the politicization of the FBI and the lack of investigation into the BLM riots and stuff. But instead, that all get kind of washed away now and won't be talked about, because instead we have this retarded conspiracy theory that is completely fake, or at least not even remotely proved by anything in this report. And actually, this report provides evidence against that conspiracy theory.
Right. The conspiracy is that the feds turned January 6th into a Capitol riot from a peaceful protest, and that the Republicans are just angels that would never.
Yes, that there were FBI people infiltrating in the crowd, and that they were the ones that got everyone to riot.
Right.
So we're supposed to believe simultaneously that you have all these FBI agents that are complaining about how insanely incompetent their leadership was on January 6th in order to organize anything. And yet they also have this 10D chess move where they're basically tricking all these people into rioting and doing all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, okay. That's great.
Okay.
Debunked.
Guys.
Well, we'll see. I'm sure the story will not be debunked, and the lie will continue to persist as all this occurs. Once the lie gets out, it seems like it's almost impossible for the information to ever be corrected.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch Adam show. Most of the time we stream Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, and we stream during the week. Come join us. You guys are going to love it. It'll be great.